You are not a king. You are a follower. Right now, in this very moment, you're probably following someone else's script for your life, following their opinions about what matters, following their validation system for what makes you worthy, following their emotional reactions to events that don't even concern you. And here's the brutal truth that will either wake you up or make you click away. The difference between those who rule their inner kingdom and those who remain eternal subjects comes down to one habit, one mental discipline that Marcus Aurelius practiced on the battlefield, that Epictetus taught to slaves who became philosophers. That separates the sovereign mind from the servant mind. Most people will never discover this habit because they're too busy consuming everyone else's thoughts to generate their own. But if you stay with me for the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to install what I call the sovereign filter, the same mental framework that transforms followers into kings, not through external power, but through something far more valuable: complete psychological independence. I'm going to give you 5 specific phrases that, when internalized, will fundamentally rewire how you process reality. These aren't motivational platitudes. These are cognitive weapons that will make you psychologically untouchable. The architecture of mental slavery. Picture 2 men standing in the same room. A criticism is hurled at both of them. The same words, the same tone, the same intent to wound. The first man, the follower, immediately absorbs the criticism into his bloodstream like poison. His face flushes. His heart races. He either lashes out in defense or crumbles in shame. For the next 3 days, he replays the moment obsessively. He crafts elaborate revenge fantasies. He seeks validation from others to heal the wound. He has given a stranger the keys to his mental kingdom. The second man, the king, hears the same words, but processes them through what the Stoics called the ruling faculty. He pauses, not out of weakness, but from strength. In that pause, he asks himself, is this true? Is this useful? Is this my concern? If the criticism contains truth, he extracts the lesson like a surgeon removing a bullet, cleanly, without emotional infection. If it's false, he lets it pass through him like wind through a tree. No resistance, no absorption, no rental space in his mind. The follower asks, why did this happen to me? The king asks, what can I do with this? This is not about suppressing emotions. This is about something far more powerful, choosing which thoughts deserve the throne of your attention. The discovery that changes everything. Marcus Aurelius, while leading the Roman Empire through plague and war, wrote something in his private journal that most people completely misunderstand. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Most read this as motivation, but Marcus was documenting a discovery, the discovery that your mind is the only territory you can ever truly rule. Everything else is foreign land. The average person believes their thoughts are facts. They think because they feel inadequate, they are inadequate. Because they feel offended, they were offended. Because they fear judgment, judgment has power over them. But here's what separates kings from followers. Kings understand that thoughts are merely suggestions from a committee of advisors, some wise, some foolish, some trying to protect you, some trying to limit you. And just like a real king, you get to decide which advisors you listen to. This is the habit. Never accepting a thought or feeling as truth without first putting it on trial in your mental court. Let me show you exactly how to do this. Phrase 1. I notice that I'm thinking, and quand te disser ben horistarns der das. The follower says, I'm worthless. The king says, I notice that I'm thinking I'm worthless. See the difference? 4 words that create infinite space between you and the thought. This is what I call the observation crown. The ability to watch your thoughts without becoming them. When Epictetus was a slave, physically owned by another man, he discovered something remarkable. His master could control his body, but the moment Epictetus learned to observe his thoughts rather than be them, he became freer than his master would ever be. The master was enslaved to his anger, his fears, his need for control. Epictetus was sovereign in his mind. Try this today. When anxiety rises, don't say, I'm anxious. Say, I notice anxiety arising in my body. When someone's opinion threatens to derail you, say, I notice I'm giving this stranger's words the power to disturb my peace. This isn't word games. This is the foundation of mental sovereignty. Because the moment you can observe a thought, you're no longer inside it. You're above it. And from that elevated position, you can choose whether to engage or let it pass. Phrase 2. What would this look like if it were easy? The follower complicates everything. He turns a simple conversation into a chess match. He transforms a basic decision into an existential crisis. Why? Because complexity makes him feel important. If his problems are complicated, then his suffering is justified. The king asks a different question. What would this look like if it were easy? Seneca, the Stoic advisor to emperors, noticed that most people's suffering comes not from their actual circumstances, but from the elaborate stories they build around those circumstances. A man loses his job and constructs an epic tragedy. A woman faces criticism and writes a novel of injustice in her mind. But what if you just didn't? What if losing your job was simply, I need to find new income? What if criticism was simply, someone shared their opinion? What if rejection was simply, this didn't align? The follower needs drama because drama makes him feel significant. The king preserves his energy for what actually matters. Here's how you implement this. Next time you face any challenge, before you spiral into complexity, pause and ask, what would this look like if it were easy? Then do that version. Phrase 3. I choose my response. Viktor Frankl, survivor of the Nazi concentration camps, discovered something in the darkest depths of human experience that aligns perfectly with Stoic teaching. Between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies your power to choose. The follower believes he has no choice. Someone insults him, he must defend. Someone rejects him, he must feel worthless. The market crashes, he must panic. He lives in a permanent state of must, enslaved to every external trigger. The king knows the secret. You always have a choice. Always. Even when someone holds a gun to your head, you choose your internal response. This isn't toxic positivity. This is the ultimate expression of human dignity. Bruce Lee understood this when he said, you will continue to suffer if you have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to you. True power is sitting back and observing things with logic. If words control you, that means everyone else can control you. The practice. Before every response today, say internally, I choose my response. Feel the power in that pause. Your boss criticizes your work? I choose my response. Your partner questions your decision? I choose my response. Traffic makes you late? I choose my response. This 3-second pause is the difference between a king and a follower. The follower is a puppet, dancing to everyone else's strings. The king cuts the strings with those 4 words. Phrase 4. This too is training. The follower sees obstacles as punishments. The king sees them as training equipment. Marcus Aurelius, in the middle of a plague that was decimating Rome, wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Every challenge you face is not happening to you. It's happening for you. But only if you have the mental sovereignty to frame it that way. Lost your job? This too is training. Training in resilience, in creativity, in rebuilding. Got betrayed? This too is training. Training in judgment, in forgiveness, in selecting better allies. Facing illness? This too is training. Training in mortality, in presence, in what truly matters. The follower asks, why me? The king says, this too is training. What am I being trained for? Here's a mental exercise that will transform how you process difficulty. Imagine you're a character in an epic story, and the author needs you to develop certain strengths for the climax. Every setback is the author preparing you. What qualities is this current challenge developing? What strengths will you have after this that you didn't have before? Suddenly, you're not a victim of circumstances. You're a hero in training. Phrase 5. I release you. This is the ultimate expression of mental sovereignty. The ability to release. The follower holds on to everything. Every slight becomes a vendetta. Every failure becomes an identity. Every judgment becomes a life sentence. He carries a museum of grievances in his mind, carefully maintaining each exhibit of how he was wronged. The king practices what I call sovereign release. He understands that holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. More than that, it's giving someone free real estate in the only kingdom you actually rule, your mind. I release you doesn't mean forgiveness in the traditional sense. It means I release you from my mental kingdom. You no longer have citizenship in my thoughts. Your opinion no longer has voting rights in my self-worth. Your actions no longer have the power to disturb my peace. Seneca practiced this daily. Before bed, he would review the day and consciously release everything: the praise, the criticism, the successes, the failures. He understood that a king who goes to bed carrying the entire kingdom's burden will wake up too exhausted to rule. Tonight, before you sleep, practice this. Think of everyone who wronged you today, everyone who disappointed you, everyone whose opinion threatened your peace, and say internally, I release you. Feel the space that opens up. That's your mental kingdom, returned to its rightful ruler. The transformation protocol. Let me tell you about two men I knew. Both faced the same betrayal: a business partner who embezzled funds and destroyed their company. The first man, the follower, made this betrayal his identity. 3 years later, he's still telling the story to anyone who will listen. He checks his former partner's social media daily, feeding his rage with every success post. He's developed anxiety, insomnia, and a cynicism that poisons every new relationship. The betrayal happened once, but he's recreated it in his mind 10,000 times. The second man, the king, processed the betrayal differently. He felt the anger, yes. The disappointment, absolutely. But after the initial storm, he asked himself, what can I control here? He could control the legal response. He could control the lessons learned. He could control his next moves. Everything else, including his former partner's karma, he released. 6 months later, he had built something better. Not because positive thinking magically fixed everything, but because he refused to rent out his mental real estate to someone who had already taken enough. Every moment he might have spent in resentment, he invested in rebuilding. The follower is still fighting a war that ended 3 years ago. The king has built a new empire. This is the difference one habit makes. The mental sovereignty revolution. You might be thinking, this sounds like suppression, like pretending things don't affect you. No, kings feel everything, but they choose what deserves residence in their mental kingdom. They experience anger without becoming angry. They feel fear without becoming fearful. They acknowledge pain without becoming victims. This is what Epictetus meant when he said, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about those things. The follower is disturbed by reality. The king is disturbed only by his own poor judgments, and those he can change. The 5 pillars of your mental kingdom. Let's crystallize what you're taking from this. First, I notice that I'm thinking. Your observation crown, creating space between you and every thought. Second, what would this look like if it were easy? Your simplicity sword, cutting through self-created complexity. Third, I choose my response. Your sovereignty scepter, reclaiming power in every interaction. Fourth, this too is training. Your growth shield, transforming every obstacle into strength. Fifth, I release you. Your peace treaty, freeing your mental kingdom from occupation. These aren't just phrases. They're cognitive rewiring tools. Use one, and you'll feel different for an hour. Use all 5 daily, and you'll become unrecognizable in 6 months. The choice before you. Here's what most self-help won't tell you. Becoming a king in your own mind is lonely at first. When you stop seeking validation, people call you arrogant. When you stop absorbing others' emotions, they call you cold. When you stop playing the victim, they call you heartless. When you release resentment, they call you weak. The follower will hear these judgments and immediately adjust, desperate to return to the warm prison of approval. The king understands that other people's opinions are like weather, sometimes pleasant, sometimes harsh, but ultimately just atmospheric conditions passing through his kingdom. He doesn't argue with rain. He doesn't negotiate with wind. He observes, adapts if necessary, but never mistakes the weather for the landscape. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world, wrote, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." The follower is always looking around. The king is looking ahead. Your coronation awaits. You have 2 paths before you as this video ends. Path 1, return to following. Return to letting every external voice have voting rights in your mental parliament. Return to the exhausting game of trying to control what you cannot while ignoring the one thing you can control completely. Stay a servant in your own mind, forever at the mercy of every passing opinion, every random event, every person who decides to make you their emotional dumping ground. Path 2, accept the crown of your own mental kingdom. Start with just one phrase tomorrow. Notice yourself thinking. Choose your response. Release what doesn't serve you. Build, day by day, the mental sovereignty that no external force can ever revoke. The throne of your mind has always been there, waiting. Most people live their entire lives never realizing they were born to sit on it. They die as followers in their own consciousness, having given everyone else the authority they alone possessed. But you've just been handed the keys to your kingdom. The question isn't whether you're capable of ruling your mind. Nature already gave you that capacity. The question is whether you'll accept the responsibility that comes with sovereignty. Because here's the final truth that separates kings from followers. Followers wait for permission to be powerful. Kings remember they were born with a crown. Your mind is the only kingdom you'll ever truly rule. Start acting like it. The throne awaits, but only you can choose to sit on it.